powered by Riverside.
Welcome to our next episode. I didn't have the mic up. Welcome to our next episode of the World's Beautiful Game podcast, the WBG podcast for those on Spotify. Just wanted to, late episode this week. Some family was not doing well, but we wanted to make sure we got an episode out before the weekend, as we do have quite a bit going on as we approach the World Cup. We're just 13 days away now from the beginning, that Thursday matchup for Mexico playing against South Africa, that rematch of the 2010 World Cup, if I'm not mistaken. Bafana with that beautiful goal they scored. But anyways, as always with you, your host Goose, and of course Will here on the line as always. So Will, talk to me, man. Obviously, we're going to go through. I'll give a little bit of insight into what this episode will be about. So we want to just quickly go over a preview of the Champions League, which is tomorrow morning, super early for those of you that have not looked at that schedule. So please make sure you're early to not miss that game. Should be a good one. Obviously, PSG versus Arsenal on that one. I'm sure we'll try to sneak in some views there, but I'll definitely be watching in the morning.
I'll be at lunch, so I can watch them.
I'm considering doing like a live reaction as I watch the game. Not sure if I will or won't, but I'll see if I do that or not. I tried to do that for the World Cup reveal for the U.S., the roster reveal. We'll also be talking, of course, about the U.S. men's national team squad that was selected, and a preview of the game coming up on Sunday versus Senegal. We'll talk a little bit about a little bit of the drama surrounding the Brazil national team and what's going on in their camp. And then if we have any additional time, we're going to try to make it brief this time, but we'll go over anything else that needs our attention. But we'll definitely get started now, obviously, with a preview of the Champions League. And Will, thoughts? Let me know what you're thinking heading into tomorrow with this matchup of the newly crowned champion Arsenal and the obviously reigning champion of the Champions League, PSG.
It should be an interesting match. Obviously, you got a defensive side in Arsenal, but you have a team at PSG that's going to push it forward. So it's going to be obviously it's only one. It's not a home and away. So obviously they both got to go in 100%. Strategy wise, I think it's going to be interesting. I like how Luis Enrique has set up tactics for previous matches to adjust to different teams. So I think he has the upper hand. PSG, I think, are going to come out pretty much pushing Arsenal to get them to try to score early, and then that will have to change Arsenal's game up from what I'm guessing. It should be interesting. It should still be a good game. Obviously, nobody's really been a fan of Arsenal's play, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, interesting. I've kind of been listening to different things different people are saying on different podcasts, and some kind of interesting points were brought up. Not sure if you've gotten a chance to hear some of these, but initially the thought was that Arsenal, obviously is going to be riding the confidence of winning the league, a lot less pressure on their back, and then PSG at the same time may have kind of thrown a wrinkle at Arsenal and Arteta's plan, because the first game against Bayern, they came out, balls to the wall, lights out, blitzkrieg, like just straight went for it and didn't care, how many goals they gave up. But they, in the end, obviously wound up scoring more goals. And then in the second game, we saw, like you said, some tactical genius from Luis Enrique where, the first half maybe was a little open, but then in the second half really closed it down, went a little more tactical in how they targeted Olise on one side and really closed the game down to one side of the field to kind of control the narrative, right? So it's now giving Arsenal kind of different ideas and having to think about more complex ways to approach the game. We do have to shine a light on Arsenal and their record defensively for the Champions League, of course. Only have giving up, I think last time we said 6 goals throughout the whole tournament. So obviously not easy to break down Arsenal the way maybe Bayern was and the way that game wound up being. Thoughts on, how Arsenal has to prepare. Also, if what Luis Enrique has done, do you think will caused a challenge to besides the Marine being the favorites? Like, what do you make of all of that, right? Because it's a lot to think about when you think about this game being a one-off.
It's yes, it's not going to be as easy as because obviously PSG has been scoring, they've been dominant, but at the same time, obviously Arsenal have also quietly. I guess you can, I mean, you cannot say dominant because they've obviously won, and maybe they haven't on the scoreboard. It hasn't shown that it's you know 5+ goals in really any game, but they've dominated in the fact that they knew what they were setting up for, and they pretty much controlled every single game that they played. And even in the close games, they still, again, the goals were hard to come by for the opposition. So how they prepare, that's interesting. I don't know because again, Luis Enrique's tactics they're not set, so he's gonna improvise, and they might have a strategy for him, but seems like he can pretty much adjust on the fly, and he knows how to change up strategy. So it's not gonna be easy, um, and
Do you
it's not
think
a simple.
you think it's as favored to PSG side? I know when we've talked in recent episodes, we have said, hey, PSG's the clear favorite here. Do you think it's still that way with Arsenal having that monkey off their back to say with winning the league?
Letting go of the bias of kind of just because of obviously what Arsenal's fans and whatnot, to kind of getting rid of that. I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be an easy final by any means. Which speaking of, shout out to Crystal Palace for winning the league because we weren't going to talk about it, but that's another English team that won. So again, it seems that the English teams are actually they're
Finally,
close. Yeah,
the competitive power
yes,
that
because
their name
everybody,
is, yeah.
yeah, because everybody's talk trash saying, "Oh, the English don't do anything. They don't win anything. They're all big." And then when they get into play against other teams, they get beat down by other countries. So it looks like this year it'd be 3 for 3 if Arsenal win, right? Because was it West? Who was it? Villa
Yep.
that won the other one.
Villa, Crystal Palace, and now
Crystal
we're
Palace, and
waiting
then so
if
yeah, so
Arsenal
we'll see.
can do their
So we'll
thing.
see if it'll be an English sweep. So that's kind of speaking levels of changes that I guess English teams have made against other opponents. So therefore, it's going to be interesting. And I mean, to have this in mind, obviously the World Cup is right there. So now these players, I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if they say it's a final. They're weeks away from going into the World Cup. So are they going to go at 100%? I know they want to win, and I know it's easy to say, well, yes, it's the Champions League.
It's the trophy of all trophies for club
Yeah,
soccer, though,
for club,
or
yes, but
football.
at the end of the day, the World Cup is right around the corner, and that obviously only happens every 4 years. So it's got to be in the back of some players' minds. Um,
I mean, both ways though, because I
yeah. Oh,
mean,
yeah. I'm not
for the
saying from
players
the
that are like having, for the rosters that haven't been selected yet, like some of these players are about to play the game of their lives to try to get that call up for the World Cup, of course. So I hear you. I
I
just
mean,
wanted to make
obviously
sure we thought
PSG,
about both sides of it.
PSG was Kvaratskhelia. He's not going, so obviously he's got nothing to lose. But Dembele, who's very important, but also at the same time he gets injured. That's players like that. So you have Vitinha again. You have guys. So it's Pacho, who's going to be his first World Cup. So there's a lot of guys that
I don't know, man. I can't imagine going into that particular game and actually think like I hear what you're saying, but I just can't imagine that
it's
that's even a
hard.
thought, man. Like
Yeah, but
that's
it's hard. Like
crazy.
it's hard because at the same time, I mean, you would be like, no, of course it's Champions League, but this is the World Cup, as we've seen, teams get called up and how things go and how things have, for how important it is for the country, for the countries that they're representing, that these players get called up. So,
I
I
can see
think
the argument for the PSG players more than the Arsenal players because Arsenal's never won a Champions League and PSG just won one a year ago. So
didn't
I can
Arsenal
almost
win
see
with
that.
Henri and
No,
them,
no, I can almost
Invincibles? Oh,
no.
but they did.
I can almost see like this argument for sure on the PSG side, maybe a little bit, especially with a lot of those players are going to be on some really good teams, France, Portugal, of course. So I can maybe, but obviously they have Kvaratskhelia, who's been their best player. But man, if that is the mindset, that is so
It's
troubling,
remember
man. I get it though.
these guys are not the same as the old guys. The old guys wouldn't care. They'd be like, "Well, I'm
They're
going
playing
balls to
with
the wall.
two
I'm
two
going."
toes, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm making it to the World Cup somehow, right? But these guys are different. They're more like, no, I need to kind of protect myself because I need to make it to that because that's another spotlight. So I think the mindset of these players are different than back in the day. So you just got to say,
That's
he's got
an
a
interesting
possibility.
that's an
Yeah.
interesting point. I honestly
Yes.
never thought about it that way. I know that we're kind of on the older side of what some of these players are because some of them are in their early 20s, mid 20s, thinking about a long career. Obviously, thinking about the World Cup. Because for some maybe the first, for some it may be like on a team that's in a country that's prepared to make a run to a final. So I didn't think about that so much, but now that you mention it, I can see it,
It's
but
a
it's
possibility.
crazy.
Yeah,
But
it
yeah,
is. It is. But yeah, so
yeah, interesting. Last thing on this game, obviously, as we wait for tomorrow to happen, do you have a prediction on a score?
uh 2-1 PSG.
2-1 PSG. I heard 2-1 PSG on a podcast also. I am gonna go out and say 1-0 to Arsenal. 1-0 to Arsenal. 1-0 to Arsenal. I hate to say this, and I'm a defender, but defense wins championships, and the stronger defense in this case is going to be Arsenal. I mean, their record kind of speaks for itself. I've been betting against them all season because I really didn't think they had it. I don't know if they've turned the corner. I mean, for the Premier League, yes, but like this is Champions League, but I don't know. Something about this tells me that them having that monkey off their back, they're going to be ready to go for this one. And the only caveat I will say to all of this is that a crazy thing that I heard was the amount of games that Arsenal players have played compared to the PSG players. And you guys can all fact check me on this. I heard this on a podcast, so sorry if I'm wrong, but Ousmane Dembele only played 11 games out of the season for League One. Kvaratskhelia only played 18 games for League. And I forget who was one of the other ones that also only played maybe half the games for PSG. So when you talk about like freshness, right, leading into a game, these players for PSG, I think it was Vitinha and John Neves. So all these guys for PSG are so fit. Luis Enrique has rotated this squad so well that those players have played less than half the games that Arsenal players have played. So obviously that's something to think about in this prediction when you guys go and see the kind of game. But yeah, that's my prediction. I actually think Arsenal may actually. I think on a set piece will score, and I think they shut out PSG. That's my prediction.
Wow,
Bold,
that's bold.
bold. Yep.
That's very bold.
I don't know. It's kind of like what I'm thinking, man.
But yeah, well, moving on.
All right.
It's,
So obviously, we're going to move on to our next subject, which is the reason why we're in our USA mode here. Me with my kid on, and Will got the background going on there with the traditional old school logo. So the roster was revealed. They had the Times Square awkward as hell situation with a weird performance afterwards. With probably the fakest of fans in attendance to watch all of this go down. But the U.S. did announce their 26-man roster. Not a lot of surprises, to be honest. I don't think either one of us, and even in our group chat, were really caught off guard by most of what went down. I think 1 through like 23, we kind of all knew what was coming. Even I think the Gio one wasn't much of a surprise. But of course, Alex Sendejas, surprising. Tanner Tessman left off. Diego Luna left off. I will let you take the floor on what you think of what this roster reveal tells us and what this means for the U.S. going forward for these next two friendlies and obviously the World Cup.
It's interesting. Obviously, seeing the reactions with everybody. Obviously, the biggest snub is Diego Luna for the fact that he's been the poster boy for the U.S. pretty much for everything. It hasn't even been Pulisic. It hasn't been McKinney. It hasn't been really any player. Luna has been the center of attention for everything. He had a good Gold Cup. He was playing strong, and I just recently listened to it, and I hate. I don't know why it still comes up, but anything Alexi Lalas has to say, and Stu Holden, he's really been, I've
And he's been back and forth. Yeah.
yeah, so he hasn't been what he used to be. So I don't know if he's trying to get the same attention that Lalas is getting, but and
I
what he
think
said
I
to
think
me,
the brain rot from Lawless is starting to creep
maybe,
in with Stu
but
Holden.
what he said to me, and it didn't make any sense, is, what have you done for me lately? Which I think is a terrible thing to say because if we're gonna go by that, Gio Reyna, what have you done for me lately? So how on earth can you say that and
Our
then
captain.
yeah, exactly. So that's I think the dumbest thing to say. But for me, and a lot of people are like, well, Luna's still in the MLS. At the end of the day, MLS, when you're going to the World Cup, is going to be a completely different ball game. And I understand. Obviously, you still have Roldan coming in, which Roldan I don't think has been too hot the last few weeks either. And
Another. What have you done for me lately? Yep.
exactly. So if that's the case, so that to me just doesn't make any sense. Now, the reason I like Luna, and he might not be able to compete against most of these guys that are in the World Cup because you're talking about players, the best of the best, obviously performing. But it's the same that heart, that passion, that fight that he has that you don't see, which throughout most of the U.S. players. When we'll see if that fire lights up. But I think him being left out, it was a bit shocking, not because he picked Zendejas, because I think Zendejas is the better player between them two. Obviously, he's the number 10 for America, and he's been lighting it up over there, and not just lately.
Just a
It's
lot of
just
consistently good performances. Yeah.
exactly for the U.S. Obviously, he hasn't
I
really
mean,
been there. He hasn't been called.
he's barely sniffed. Yeah, it's
Yeah, so
crazy.
the fact that that was a call, I mean, I like it. I think he can easily, definitely play an important role, but I think a player like Luna it, it was needed. Now, who do you leave off? I don't know. The same thing as Tessman. Tessman also
I have thoughts
had
on
a
that.
yeah. Tessman also had a good season as well. So for him being to be left off, I know calling in again guys like Roldan because of the experience, but again the same thing. You're talking about MLS experience versus guys that have already made the leap across the pond and obviously did okay. Haven't done too bad. So if they're playing up there, that big, that gives the questions like, okay, cool, Roldan has that experience. He's older, but he doesn't have that experience across in Europe. So it's, I don't know. At the end of the day, obviously, these guys aren't starters. Well, most of them aren't starters, so it shouldn't really affect us. Obviously, the bigger question, and from what Poch kind of said, and I understand, like, hey, why are we still asking questions about who's left off? Why don't we talk about the guys that are on the team? Because at the end of the day, this is the choices that he made. He's the coach. You have to trust that he knows what he's doing. He's a decent coach.
That's a tough one, right? Because the biggest problem, and I'll let you finish, but the toughest thing with what you just said is that, and we've all had this conversation in our group chat, like we don't know what the fuck is happening, like what's going on, what's the plan, like no one understands, like it just changes every game. So I wanted to kind of put an emphasis on that, but you can finish obviously.
And yeah, no. So with that, and then on top of that, him already making it clear that he's going to be gone after the World Cup. So then it's like, okay, so we don't know what you're doing. So you're just going to experiment for the World Cup and then you're gone. So at the end of the day, that just kind of like what? Like what the hell? Like you're going to come up with some type of experiment. It might work, it might not work. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter to you because you're leaving anyways. So I'm not too confident, thrilled.
You're still conflicted about how to feel about what's coming. Is
Yeah,
where basically
yeah.
where you're coming
So
down.
yeah,
Yeah, but
we
so
have
let's go real quick through the roster just to kind of like real quick notes on each one and say we can say how we feel. We can say whatever you're thinking off the top of your head. But real quick, keepers: Turner, Freeze, and Chris Brady, which was a surprise. Not sure how much you know about Chris Brady. You're a goalkeeper, so I imagine sometimes you watch these things. I did think it was interesting. The number 1 jersey went to Matt Turner, and Matt Freeze number 24. Not sure if you made anything of that, but
no, maybe they asked what numbers, and maybe Freeze was like maybe he likes that number, and out of
Turner
respect to
did say
Turner,
Turner did say that Freeze picked his favorite number. I still think there's something to it, but
I don't think so because I don't see Turner. Turner should not start at all. Turner was great for us. He did what he
he's
for
had a solid
previously.
2026.
Yeah, but the last couple games that we saw him play in the friendlies in the U.S., that if that isn't
But
indicative.
how much was that on him, and how much was
Yes,
that?
there was still a lot of plays that at his point, at his age and at his experience, that's it doesn't there's certain movements and there's certain pretty much things that you can do that kind of will dictate how your team plays. So at the end of the day, that's to me it's unexcusable, especially when you're this close to the World Cup and you have that much experience. Because if we would have seen it in a player, if we would have seen Tim Howard make those mistakes, even if we're like, oh, how much is no? Because you see the type of level. Turner's level obviously has declined already, so that's why you're kind of just like and not just that, but we don't have another keeper that's like, well, we have the other keepers, so it don't matter. Now we're kind of like,
I mean, the problem is the whole goalkeeper situation is so 180 from what we're
yeah,
used to
we've
with the
lost
U.S. men's
exactly.
national team. So
So
yeah,
yeah, that's been pretty much our strongest historical point from the past and which we don't have anymore, which is blows my mind. But um, yeah, I'm
especially
for
in a
sure.
country where we're used to playing with the ball in our hands. So yeah,
Yeah, so I think Freese is definitely the number one. I wouldn't make too much of it. And if Turner, if Freese doesn't play these next two games to leading up, I don't care. I don't care if there shouldn't be a question anymore. It should be Freese playing these next two games because it should be the field players that are in question to see who you're going to bring. Turner, maybe if you really want to bring him in the second half or something, but Freese needs to get these games in starting going into the World Cup knowing that he's a starter and he's going to get it because again, same thing going back to our last keeper Howard. Any of these prep games or anything, who was the one starting? It was always Howard. Didn't really matter. So even if it was guaranteed, didn't matter what happened unless he got injured, and then you would have Guzan would come in every now and then and Ramondo very little, but for the most part, it was always Howard and especially these final two games. So that's what I want to see. I want to see start.
the last question I would have on the goalkeepers for you, and is do you think the World Cup experience that Matt Turner has is more valuable in helping him potentially take that number 1 spot, or do you think Matt Freese coming in as fresh to a tournament with high pressure has more of an advantage because he's doesn't really know what to expect?
Um,
I mean, you kind of do, but at the same time, you're a little naive, obviously, right? And
yeah,
having that kind of helps.
yeah, obviously, Turner with the World Cup experience and the European experience is different. I guess is what kind of keeps him as the number two, without a doubt. Obviously here, but I think he
For
doesn't have
Arsenal, no
enough.
less.
Yeah, I just don't think he has enough. He didn't show it, and at this point, I think Freese showed enough consistency and to be the number one. So unless things dramatically change, or we don't see right now in training sessions and everything, he shows off and then we see it come. It's the only reason that I would see him picked. But obviously, he needs to pretty much turn into Ochoa right now for the World Cup.
Hey,
So
you never know. You never know. But we'll move on to the defenders, of course, as this is kind of a really big talking point for the
yep,
U.S. and how
and
many defenders are called in. And I will preface all of this by saying that Pochettino did kind of address this situation, and his mindset with what his selection overall is that a lot of these players can play multiple positions, and that is the reason why it looks the way it does. But we'll go through them quick. Trusty, Dest, Richards, Robinson, Robinson. So Jedi, Miles Robinson, Tim Ream, Alex Freeman, Joe Scally, which was a surprise to me, Mark McKenzie. I'll real quick go through that and say Joe Scally to me makes absolutely no sense. I love that he's from Long Island. It's great for us to represent, where we're from. But I question that decision because of something you said about Diego Luna potentially being looked at like, hey, you're not good enough yet to play against some of the best players in the world. And I really feel like that's also the same thing with Joe Scally. Like he has played a ton of games for Mönchengladbach, great, but the Bundesliga, as we see, is a two-team, and I think at this point it's basically like a one-team league. How much competition is he actually playing with that's legit that you can really say, hey, this guy can handle that pressure? I know at times he's had to defend Alfonso Davies, who fucking flies down the wing and is a threat at all times. And obviously, I think on that side, for Bayern, who is it that plays on that side? Luis Diaz, obviously, so he probably has defended him. But with that said, we've seen Joe Scally play against some of these players in these European teams and has not hacked it. He's had a hard time. I don't think he's a starter. Don't get me wrong. I think he's just going to be a kind of plug and play kind of guy. But this amount of defenders does also say to me that we're going to play three in the back with two wing backs. And potentially, I think people are calling for Alex Freeman to play that right center back with Dest as a wing back because they both are Alex Freeman is very responsible to his position. And obviously, we've seen that with him going to Villarreal and getting some starting minutes now in the last few games of the season. So thoughts on all of that and how many defenders and Pochettino's explanation of some of this.
Well, I guess if we go to it, obviously the Luna snub, I don't. Scally's not the one that I would leave off because even if what you're saying with no competition in Germany, it's still more competition than the MLS. He played 30? I have the stats here. Where'd it go?
I think just
32 games.
Played, all the whole
32 games. Season, yeah. He had 2 goals, 3 assists, playing on the right side. So he won 74% of his aerial duel challenges. So even if you're saying that there's no competition, you're still playing Dortmund, you're still playing Leverkusen, you're still playing Bayern Munich. So I wouldn't say it's only a one team, maybe to win the league, sure, but the competition is not stiff. It's still pretty good competition. They still do okay against European competitions when they go and play. So I think that experience is a lot more. Is it surprising that he got called in? Sure, but if he's playing 5 wing backs, you got to think about any injuries. Anthony Robinson has been hurt a lot, so that's one.
Okay, you're not wrong.
Serginho Dest, right? So okay, so let's say worst case scenario, God forbid, and I hope not, but let's say they both go out. Cool. So now you got Freeman to cover. All right, who's covering the left? Nobody else that we have bringing is pretty much all the center backs are strictly center backs, unless you're going to drop Tim Weah, which then obviously you lose his attacking threat. So
maybe Miles Robinson, possibly.
Yeah, possibly. But again, it's another MLS experience with who hasn't seen it. So bringing Scally, what he saw this season, he's freshly coming off the season of European competition. So I don't think it's a terrible call. It was surprising. But I'm almost 100% sure that he's going with 5 backs.
And I hate to even have that opinion because again, as a Long Island guy, like I'm super excited for him to represent putting aside, for us.
Obviously, awesome. But putting that aside, obviously, because that's awesome to have a Long Island guy representing. But putting aside, even I didn't like him either playing for the U.S. team because anytime I saw him play, he just looked like he wasn't ready. But
it looks like a struggle, right? That's what I've gotten from it.
I think it's because he was still nervous to try to impress. But now that he's got that European experience, it's just a big difference because
he's ready for pressure games. I hear you.
At this point now, he's got that, and he's got that where if he does have to come in, they do bring him in, he won't be as nervous because those are guys he's gonna maybe has already played against this season, guys he'll see. So I see why we need it. But to me, the bigger question is obviously Ream is going to probably most likely be a starting center back, which again, we talked about it. We love Ream and everything, but he is not at the level anymore to be able to handle anything.
We're about to find out Sunday. We're about to find out.
Yeah, exactly. We were just talking about it before that lineup with those players. So that's going to be fast paced right there.
So
So
and I'll kick that into our next set of players here, the midfielders. So interesting because as we're talking about all the defenders, Max Arston is on the list of midfielders for the U.S. national team, which we also know he's a left back, primarily for his club team. So another wrinkle here, and then obviously we have Tyler Adams. We already know what position he'll play. Gio Reyna, Weston McKennie, Brendan Aronson, Sebastian Berhalter, Malik Tillman, with Roldan, and obviously Max Arston, as I just mentioned. So to me, what I'll say real quick to this group of players, like this is a very interesting situation because a couple of these players we kind of thought they were bubble players and maybe not make the roster. And obviously, we're referring to Sebastian Berhalter, Christian Roldan. Shout outs to Chapin. We're both, we're Guatemalan, obviously. So him being a Guatemalan, Salvadorian American, like for us, I'm gonna buy the kit with his name on it. I don't care. I don't want any other guys. That's the guy who represents me and us and in our family. So I'm gonna support the hell out of the guy. You mentioned this earlier, and I've heard it from Tony Miola. Pochettino has asked also as well, obviously, that I understand that some of us may not like that some of the players got called in, but we do got to support the team that's actually going, right? We have to push these guys, let them know we're here. We're wanting them to represent us. So to me, super exciting to see those two MLS guys representing because I don't think they're as bad as people make them out to be. I think my favorite thing about a player like Sebastian Berhalter, for example, is that dude is a rabid dog. Like he's gonna like one thing we've been missing for the U.S. national team is that fight that the old school teams used to have. Like no one would step on you, no matter how small they were. They would fight back. That guy fights back. I love that in the midfield, along with Tyler Adams. A little bit of questions in regards to if we're playing two in front of the defenders, who actually sits next to Adams and actually will be responsible to stay back, right? Because that's what Johnny Cardoso was going to do for us. Thoughts on the player pool there, and all the things that I just mentioned.
So yeah, as far as they're saying supporting like, hey, these guys shouldn't be there. I don't I don't agree with people saying as far as, oh, these guys suck, this and that, because they're in MLS. Not that's not what I'm trying to say at all. I'm definitely going to support all the guys. I do like all the players, and as far as between Arston and Scally, I think that should have been the choice of one of those two being left off and Luna coming in.
And Tessman obviously being
Tessman, which is exactly. So it's tough, but there's no knock. I like all these guys. I like our team completely, and I hope they do well. I hope they come in, they step up, and obviously this is a chance. I mean, Arston and Berholt are already both 25, so it's not like they're little kids anymore. They're not that young, so it's not like, they have a very limited time to make that leap over if they're going to leave. But this is their maybe chance to kind of
this is the stage for them
that they're going to go over to Europe. So I'm curious.
We've had conversations about Arston. I kind of like him.
I like him.
When he goes forward, he's really
okay.
good. Yeah. Defensively is where he's shaky, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think, if he comes in again, a lot of these players that we're talking about, they might not even play because now you're in the World Cup, so you're pretty much your starters are going to be, your point.
The
obviously,
same that we know. Yeah.
You're gonna want to rest them a little bit because obviously games are happening faster. So you are going to want to make some changes so you guys aren't fully gassed out, especially most of these guys have played for, a lot. So you're going to have to make some changes, some adjustments. But
quick question, so obviously, how much does Gio play with him being the freshest of all these guys?
I don't know because, for the U.S., he was okay, except this last tournament. He didn't really do much. He didn't really play.
But he did come in, goal and assist one of the games.
Yeah, exactly. So the one U.S. shirt that I had that has a name other than Aronson that you got me as a Gio Reyna T-shirt that I have USA. I love Gio Reyna, and obviously he's his dad Claudio Reyna is huge. Yeah, so you want to see him do well. He's still young. He's still a kid, but at the same time,
he's so young, dude. 22.
Yeah,
I was 23 years old, man. That's crazy.
23, exactly. So he's still young, but you want to see him. You don't want. To me, he's becoming a Mexican player. because Mexican players that go across the pond that had a big hype, what do? And obviously, I feel like I constantly bring up
Far
Mexican
and few.
players.
Let's go far and few between actually make it long term and
Yeah, long
eventually
term,
wind up losing their
Dos
position and having to come
Santos,
back.
all
Yeah,
these guys exactly.
yeah.
Ochoa, prime example. So, and I hate to have to keep bringing those guys up,
I
but
mean, but it's what we compare when it comes
yeah,
to
and
like
as far as
who is in
hype,
our region, right?
hype
Yeah,
wise, because I mean, you can't really compare them to other players from other countries, especially Argentinians or Brazilians, because well, Brazilians, you know what Brazilians are going to do. They're going to give you a couple of solid years, and they're going to go party and
and then they're
crash
gonna
out.
go Saudi Arabia,
Argentinians, yeah,
China, make a lot
yeah.
of money. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, yeah, I compare in that fact because he's yes,
I mean,
he's
it's fair.
young,
That's the
23.
most apples to apples comparison. So I
Yeah,
don't think
and
you're too wrong in doing so.
but he's 23. He has a lot of years playing already because he came in young and he went. Obviously he was already at Dortmund, so he went to a big team. So it's just kind of like he's crashed out. So it's kind of like you've had all this experience and now you're disappearing. You faded and then you didn't play and now you slowly towards the end of the season made a little bit. You made up for it a little bit, and now all of a sudden you got called in. Again, when we talked about it before, it's kind of like on him. Obviously, yeah, like he said, he can't. If he says yes, he wants to be or he deserves to be on the team, he's arrogant. If he says he doesn't, he doesn't think he deserves it because of what he's done, then he's saying that. Then he's overlooking that it's not important enough. So
I did see his interview after the whole press conference,
yeah,
and he was very humble in his whole approach. He goes, "Hey, I'm just happy to be here. Hey, I'm happy to be here because I don't. I think a lot of these guys, I think they're super close, and I'm pretty sure they feel for the players that didn't get called in.
oh, of
So
course,
so I think I'm not that I'm surprised. I think there's more maturity to Gio Reyna now than there was the last World Cup with everything that happened. I know a lot of
with
that
age
was
and
not on
everything,
him,
of
but I
course.
do think he's matured a bit, and you can see it. And I'm kind of hoping that whatever's happening at his club is just kind of like favorite or unpopularity towards an American, possibly. I don't know, because Joe Scally plays a lot, so it's really
Exactly.
weird to
So
me.
I don't think so. But again, at this point, it doesn't matter. We need to see what happens. We need to see if he is going to play a role on this team, if he was or what he was brought in for. So I know he has the skill because he's shown it. So if he can bring that and show that desire, and we'll just see. But
Yeah, and we're not going to go into tactics of what the lineups could be, should be.
we'll find out on
We're not
Saturday
coach.
or on
We want to
Sunday.
see what actually goes on the field when they play these next couple games.
Hmm.
I think that's more important than anything. I think us trying to figure or guess,
No,
it doesn't
yeah.
matter. Like what
At
we
the end of the
happens
day,
then, yeah, it
what
doesn't
he
matter.
needs to do on Sunday is what he's going to do for the next game and then going into World Cup. No more fucking changing these stupid formations. I think it's ridiculous. You go with whatever formation you want. If you want seven in the back, whatever, but that's what the fuck you're playing.
Yeah,
Five in the back, which is
I
most
agree.
likely lower, what I'm pretty sure the two wing backs, three center backs, and then go ahead, go from there because I'm pretty sure that's what he's
Yeah,
going to do.
like
That's what he's
what
been doing. And
5-5-3, no 5-4-1, three
most
five
likely.
two. What I don't know, whatever. Anyway,
But
we'll close out the roster with the forwards who are
forwards,
Pepe, Pulisic, Haji Wright, Balogun, Tim Weah, Zendeja. So there's no surprises there whatsoever.
nope.
Our three strikers are in the form of their lives, their careers. They're putting Americans on the map in Europe, which is fantastic. We hope they ride this wave into the World Cup. Obviously, we know with Pulisic, there's not much happening in 2026. Um, we hope that this camp helps turn that around because obviously a lot's happening in Milan. So, and then Sendejas super happy to see him get called in. I didn't realize he was 28 years old.
Yeah,
So
he's
this
already
could be his last World
he's,
Cup. Yeah.
exactly. I just think the biggest thing
Or his whole
is
World Cup.
who's our striker, because all three had excellent seasons. So
I
who
think it's
starts?
Balogun, don't you?
I think so too. But Haji also
But I think
I
Haji's
know he's in second
might
division.
be carrying some
I'm
injury
not
still,
if he
possibly.
is if he is yeah, which
I don't think he's
I
90-minute fit. Is my
yeah.
guess there? Yeah.
I want Balogun, obviously. I like Balogun. I love Pepe, but obviously Pepe's injuries and everything, and he still, but he brought it in towards the end of the season. He still had a good amount of goals. Still,
My hope
um,
for this group up top. Here's my what I want to happen, and I hope Balogun plays each game because he's our strongest guy up top. I think
mhm.
overall he's very balanced. Is really what it comes down to. fast, strong on the ball, good technique. Pepe has been a super sub for the U.S. for how
Hmm.
many years
And
now?
it
And
should continue. Yeah,
and
at this point.
I think we need that for this type of tournament, right? Because
Hmm.
you need someone to come off the bench that
Yep,
can
60, 65
give
minutes
you.
from Balogun, and then and
Yep.
then it's either going to be Pepe or Haji coming in,
Yeah.
depending on the situation of what you need to get you the last
And I
15,
would
20
and
minutes.
here's what I like about what's happening with the forwards is if Pulisic is playing like shit, take him out. Put in one of these guys that's been hot in their league. Like I heard Benny Feilhaber say this yesterday. This has been a hot take for me. I said this on one of our episodes. Do we consider now, and no one thinks this is going to happen, but with Christian's form, for him to come off the bench if a game one, yeah, but if game one he has a terrible performance, is that a consideration that Poch makes to be like, you know what, these strikers have had a hot hand in the club team. Let's try one of them out instead. Let's try
But
Haji on the left or
at,
Sendejas to start instead.
yeah, at the end, that's our captain, and I think that's a
Well, he's not
big
our captain. Our captain's Adams Richards, but
yeah, but pretty
our
much he's like
offensive, yeah.
yeah. So I think it would be a big um not morale, but chemistry knock or blow or surprise that I think it would just throw the rest of the players off the game.
You don't think it would make? I think it would have a positive impact on the team because I've said this before. Like when he hasn't played, they've looked great. When he plays, they're so focused on getting him involved that
Which I don't understand why. Yeah, because he's a
but
great player, but
they stop doing what makes them great because McKennie is fantastic. You know, Tillman, we've seen at times that flashes, he's been good. And you know, and Gio Reyna obviously can make shit happen. Balogun's like the guys up top to me all can make something happen.
well, at the
When
end
you
of the day,
start
just
focusing on Pulisic, it annoys me to no end that he's so good, but everyone focuses on getting him the ball.
yeah, no, and I think that's absolutely dumb. I think they should play the game, and obviously, if he's open and he's going to create something cool, then you try him a couple of times. If you want to get him the ball, and if you see he's not creating, cool, then we change it up and we stop playing that game. Because yeah, I think that's absolutely dumb trying to play him the ball. Because yes, he's good, but he's not God sent. You know, he's not Ronaldinho.
No.
So therefore, yes, when he was firing in the beginning of the season for Milan, perfect, beautiful. If he's doing that for us, do it. But if you see that one, two, maybe three plays there and he's still not, he's getting jammed, he's getting stuffed, he's not creating, stop. So but that's on the players. That falls on the players.
It does.
And
It does.
so yeah, at the end, am I okay with him being benched? As much as I love Pulisic, yeah, I'm okay with him being benched if he's not doing absolutely anything. If he needs to come off, and again, and if his ego if his pride gets too inflated for him to come off of the bench, and then he doesn't play when he comes off, then that's on him. Because at the end of the day, this is the World Cup. It doesn't matter. It just happens when comparing to other
That's
big
the
time
whole
players.
thing,
Yeah,
right? This
yeah,
is a World Cup. If we want to advance, our guys that are doing the thing need to be playing.
yeah, because it's not a guarantee.
And for anyone that listens to this, you guys don't know how I've been a Christian Pulisic supporter since day one. To me, I said from day one that he's already the best the best player the U.S. has ever had. Obviously, I was also saying that he does need to do some of the things that Donovan Dempsey has done. But as of when this guy came on the scene, lights out, most skilled, or at least the most clutch player, super young and playing in the biggest stages in the world, winning a Champions League, all that stuff. I'm a huge Christian Pulisic fan. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to see him on the bench, but I am also very okay with someone who's got a hot hand to be on the field instead of him.
Yeah.
I'm okay
No,
with
I'm okay with that. Yeah, and so yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, and even if the two warm-up games, because our biggest, obviously our group isn't that hard, but we always lose to Turkey. It's not that we have a tough time or that we struggle or we tie. No, we always lose to Turkey. So that's going to be an important game.
Turkey has some really good players up top,
absolutely.
obviously.
So
Arda Güler and Yildiz.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. But.
Yeah, and then obviously Sunday they'll be playing against Senegal, which is a tough test. We went through the roster for Senegal, who has a great array of players. They obviously won the AFCON and then didn't win the AFCON
They won the AFCON.
against
That was
Morocco.
bullshit. I don't care.
But
That's
I
theft to
mean,
Morocco.
but
I lost
this is going
respect
to
for
be
Morocco,
a
but
great
whatever.
challenge for the U.S. leading up to the World Cup because you have your defense might be without Richards. You're going to have Sadio Mane, NDA. These guys are
Yeah,
super
Richards.
talents.
I wouldn't expect Richards to play this game.
Yeah, so but obviously
So
that means you're going to have a McKenzie in the middle with Reem on the left.
Robinson
Um, I think
or
McKenzie
Trusty.
starts. I think Trusty
Yeah.
on the right if they play three in the back. But it's going to be like the test that the U.S. is about to face is one that's going to tell us a lot, and I hope it gives us confidence as opposed to the opposite of that. Because this is where we need to see that whatever the plan actually is from Pochettino, obviously minus Chris Richards, and we will understand that. But this is going to be a huge test for the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited, but I'm super nervous because again, like I said, if we get destroyed by these two teams, that's gonna take our game into the World Cup, and you're gonna be deflated. I don't care what happens. I don't care if they say, well, it's just friendlies before. No, I don't give a shit because if you get beat down by these two teams going into the World Cup, that's not gonna be good, right? So we'll see what happens. But
Yep, no, for sure. But yeah, obviously we wanted to leave it there.
no, we
We
didn't because you decided to
oh,
cut. You switched us up on the notes that you had me wanting to transition. Um,
apologies.
yeah. So
I got
obviously, other
excited
than
there.
that, the other biggest thing, my other team that I'm going to be rooting for, that I've always rooted for, Brazil. Brazil's very interesting. Obviously, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on what Neymar being taken, Neymar going, and then João Pedro being snubbed off of that. And they keep saying, well, Neymar shouldn't be gone. João Pedro had the hot hand, but there's a lot of other players that they could have left out. For one, Martinelli, I don't understand. He hasn't done anything this season. I don't care if he played for Arsenal. He wasn't important to that team, so therefore I would have easily left him off and taken João Pedro.
I was early
But
in the season he was, but then later on not
yeah,
so
I
much.
don't care. I'm taking João Pedro over Martinelli any day of the week. And the reason I'm taking Neymar is because again, Neymar is pretty much almost like it was almost like Pele back in the day that they
It's
wouldn't let him go.
because he was
He
injured.
was never left. No, he was not allowed to leave to Europe, and obviously Neymar left to Europe, but he wasn't allowed because he was considered like the country's crown jewel, and that's honestly what Neymar is because he is pretty much the last of
Of the crown
the
jewels. Yeah.
Joga Bonito. Yeah, he's the
Yeah.
last of the Joga Bonito. So even if he doesn't play a big role, but again, most of these players that are going, if they ask him who's your idol, nobody's going to really say Ronaldinho, not because he wasn't, but Ronaldinho was Neymar's idol, but then Neymar came in and all these young kids, because they're all young now, who is their idol? Neymar. So the fact that, if he's healthy enough, just that morality boost of having him there, seeing him at least practice and seeing that skill that he still has, because he still has the skill. It's just obviously his injuries just were kind of what have destroyed him. But interesting that.
Big blow, 2 to 3 weeks, which
And now
means
he's
he'll
hurt.
miss
Yeah,
miss the
and
first
updates.
game
Yeah,
on that particular squad.
I hope he can get some minutes in.
I mean I will say he's not the only one because Lamine Yamal for Spain, same thing. He's expected to miss the first
Chris
game.
Richards.
I think for this Brazil team, we've kind of talked and touched on this a little bit. We're talking about a Brazil team that's nowhere near the aura, the level of just like dominance that the squads of the past used to have. So a guy like Neymar on a squad that's semi young, because I think it's a pretty young squad minus a few players.
Okay.
But you no longer look at Brazil. I don't, and I'm sure you feel the same way. Brazil to me is not the powerhouse it used to be. They're kind of like skirting, like maybe no, let me not go this far, but they're kind of one of those teams that could have a very big drop off at some point if some of these players, the young players that are coming, like Estevao, who's going to miss the World Cup, don't wind up being the next Neymar, don't wind up being the next, Marcelo in defense. Like Marquinhos is the last of their kind in the back. Like, you
No,
know
you
what I
got
mean?
Gabriel. Gabriel has been solid, so you
Oh, I'm
can't.
sorry. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's so yeah. But even then, like you're talking
but it's
about,
just
like
one.
there's a
Yeah,
fall off. Like
yeah.
like you keep like
Well,
it's you're not like.
to me, the biggest fall off are the wingers
I
because
mean,
obviously you
yes,
had
of
Dani
course.
Alves, Marcelo, obviously Roberto Carlos, and you had Cafu. So you had all these big time, and right now there's no right back or left back that you're like okay because you have Sandro who's 35 years old, Danilo who's 34 years old. Um, I think Douglas Santos he's a left back. He's 23, but he played for Zenit, so he still hasn't
But again, you're
really.
talking like you just said a name like that. Most people are gonna be like, who?
Yeah,
Who's
exactly.
that? You know what I mean? Like,
So
and it's not just the who. It's like when you really think about impact for this country,
mhm,
like Brazil, the country that everyone
mhm,
resonates with football and joga bonito, like you said, like
mhm.
it's such a shift. Like the big
Well,
five, the
just
big
Marcelo
six.
was the last. Marcelo was the last one to just leave, and his skill, his dominance, just the way he played, and obviously who's a debatable, who's better between Roberto Carlos and him, and he'll never say it. And I love Roberto Carlos; he's one of my favorites because obviously him, Ronaldinho, and Ronaldo. But Marcelo, skill wise, was more skillful,
Oh yeah,
and
I don't think even Roberto Carlos would deny the skill
no,
wise. I
yeah,
think
skill wise.
Marcelo, yeah.
But the attack obviously but obviously Marcelo's gone. He's retired, and nobody came in. Nobody like, and for Brazil, that's kind of how it is. Nobody's come in. Casemiro has obviously in the middle is Gilberto Silva, and you
He's
think
on the
about
end, yeah.
Dunga, yeah, and he's about to leave. But then again, there's no more Ronaldinho that's coming in. There's no more even in the middle. When
Yeah,
you think
because
about
Bruno Guimaraes is the only other guy, and he's not exactly,
and yeah, he's not. No,
he's not
he's not.
Cafu or anybody
Kaká, well,
Kaká, like
Kaká,
anybody in the
yeah,
midfield. That
so you have no more. Rafinha is a quality player, but his injury, so you don't know if he's going to be able to do that for a
who's in that
while.
group? Do we know? I'm trying to think of who's
Brazil,
in Brazil's group. Oh, I pulled it
um,
up. Scotland, Morocco, Haiti. So
yeah,
they,
Morocco's going to be the tough match.
I think Morocco wins the group, and I think Brazil maybe comes second because I don't think Scotland can actually give them. They'll fight because they have some players that are
Yeah,
gritty. But it's I my based on recent form, Morocco one, Brazil two is what I think that group will wind up being, especially with the group that's going. I don't. I mean, Rafinha, he's been battling
see,
injury
but
all
the
season.
difference is they have Ancelotti, so
Do you think it'll make
that
that much
man.
of a difference?
Absolutely, that man. You look at Real Madrid. Look what happened to them this season. Ancelotti left, and obviously, yeah, there's a few changes and everything, but look what happened. Ancelotti, they went from a Champions League caliber team to maybe we'll make it into the second division playoff. So I think Ancelotti is a very big influence. I think
Do
he
we know
can
who they're playing
definitely.
in friendlies for send-offs? Have we seen? I haven't
I
looked
can
at the
pull it up.
schedule, but I'm curious. I'm
They are
curious to
playing.
watch that
See,
Brazil with him.
Panama, which is a great warm up to get them going, and then they got Egypt. So that's going to be the
That's going to be a challenge.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I think those are two great matches to get them into the flow and kind of get them to see how Ancelotti's going to play them. And yeah, so but more so, yeah, more so the biggest news is obviously
Neymar.
Neymar coming in and João Pedro being left off. There's still time for them to make some changes.
Yeah, I think the
So
date is June
June
1st
1st, but then I
is
heard
the
that they also
official.
have there's like a pool where they have up to like the 10th or something. I don't know. I heard something. I don't know
Okay.
if there's injuries or something where they can switch out. But
Cool. Yeah. No. Yeah. I completely forgot that subject. Thank you for bringing it up. My bad.
yeah,
I kind of ran through there, getting emotional about the U.S. But
yeah, you
obviously,
did.
it's our team that we follow. It's our team that we'll support. But yeah, no, thanks to everyone that's listening. If you guys have any comments, questions, if you guys have thoughts on who you think the starting 11 should be on Sunday, throw them our way. Let us know what country you think we should talk about also, because obviously there's a lot of announcements or rosters. We don't have enough time to talk through all of them.
Yeah.
We wanted to go through the ones that obviously made the most sense and that we're happy to talk about. But yeah, no, thank you for following, guys. Subscribe, like the podcast on Spotify. Watch us on YouTube if you want to see us also. But yeah, no, thanks again. We're trying to get this build up to the World Cup going. Obviously, Champions League, the season basically is over now for all the leagues, but the Champions League is the pinnacle, and we're about to watch hopefully an incredible game tomorrow, Sunday, the U.S. So a lot of football to watch this weekend.
Yeah, a lot of
Thanks
friendlies.
again to everyone for watching. And man, we are 2 weeks away from the World Cup as of yesterday. So get your beer ready, get your popcorn ready. I got my big TV. I'm ready to go. We won't watch the games live most likely, but we are ready, man. Go USA. Go USA.
Let's go. All right.
Alrighty, guys. Peace.
Have a good one, guys.
Powered by Riverside.
Stop.